Is he giving it to China, or are we bringing? Is there a way to get it back in the United States?
You mean infrastructure construction?
Mr. Zach, yes, sir.
Well, I think what you know, there is a bridge I think they're talking about in California that's going to be constructed using a lot of Chinese materials, and you know, we need to have a construction here. You know, if you go back and you look at some of the regulations coming out of the EPA against the cement industry, I mean, it is really, you know, horrific and at the disadvantage they're trying to place them on. We don't want to see our construction industry having to go to China and elsewhere for the cement resources that we can make right here. You have Cemex that is, has a headquarters right up there in West Palm Beach. Now, let me dovetail off into something else. The Transportation Infrastructure Highway Bill, okay, we did pass a 90-day extension in the House of Representatives because the Senate came out with an 18-month, 2-year extension. When you talk to people in the construction industry, that's not good enough for them to go out there and start investing capital and equipment and things of that nature. We want to get this right. We want to have a full 5-year extension of that highway transportation bill. So we have funded for the next 90 days, and we will do the right thing and get that extended for a full 5 years. But we've got to make sure we're protecting the American industry.
Mary Dorsey wants to talk about the military health care and cost of living allowances and retirement benefits. Should Congress be allowed to keep their benefits and raises, and the military cannot?
Well, as you know, Congress has not had any pay increases because the pay has been frozen. I'm glad to know that that is happening upon my arrival. As well, we do pay into a Blue Cross Blue Shield type of program. Now, the problem is this. A lot of people have not paid attention to it, but in the President's budget, there's a proposal to triple the health care rates for TRICARE over the next 3 to 5 years. That's reprehensible. As a matter of fact, I sit on the Military Personnel Subcommittee, and we have the representatives from all the services of healthcare and also the Department of Defense Undersecretary for Healthcare Matters. We're talking about penalizing 9 million Americans that have served in uniform and their healthcare benefits. That's less than 1% of this nation. And you can't tell me that less than 1% of this nation has to be a bill payer. It's just, it doesn't add up. And so basically what you're looking at for myself, I'm a retired lieutenant colonel, 22 years. I currently pay about $460 a year on the TRICARE standard. It would raise those rates to about $2,200 a year under the TRICARE standard. Now, okay, can I take care of that? Sure. But think about the E7 or the E8 that's retired. And when you talk about tripling his health care rates, that's going to have a significant economic impact on him. But even getting beyond the numbers, it's a moral decision. Because once upon a time, this nation said, if you serve 20 plus years in the United States military, you and your spouse will receive free quality health care for the rest of your lives. We broke that promise when we created Champions. Champions didn't work so well, we created TRICARE. And we said, okay. But now they're talking about tripling. And we actually took money from TRICARE last year and we gave it over to the operations and maintenance budget in the Department of Defense. So we're not bankrupting healthcare as far as the military is concerned. This is a moral decision. George Washington once said, the future generations of Americans will determine whether or not they will serve this nation based upon how well we treat our veterans. Let me tell you, a lot of young men and women in uniform are starting to ask themselves when they see some of the things that are happening. We got a great military. It's a voluntary military, but we got to take care of it.
One of our business leaders here in Pompano Beach asks a question: if Republicans on a federal and state level are so concerned about ensuring jobs for American citizens and returning veterans, why are they stonewalling E-Verify and enforcement measures?
Which enforcement measures? E-Verify?
E-Verify.
Well, look, I don't want to stonewall E-Verify. And I know there were some issues here in the state of Florida about E-Verify. We got to do something about the legal immigration situation in the United States of America. Illegal immigration is a multi-headed hydra. It's a national security issue. It's an economic issue. It's a healthcare issue. It's an education issue. It's a local criminality issue. Back in the Reagan administration, the decision was made to have an amnesty program, but the federal government was supposed to enforce their laws and secure our borders. We still have not done that. Now, what I want to make sure that we do, we can institute E-Verify, but let's be very smart about how we do it. Because what you see happening in Georgia and Alabama, because I went up and I talked to some of the folks up in Martin County, St. Lucie County, the Citrus and Calla side of the house, we can't totally destroy the agricultural industry in the United States of America. And they understand it. They understand that something has to be done. But they don't want to be put to such a disadvantage. But the next thing you know, we become dependent upon other countries for our food sources. Take a drive out west to the western part of Palm Beach County. Now, I got to tell you, a lot of people say that, folks are out there doing jobs that Americans want to do. If we restructure our corporate business tax rate, if we make sure we do the right thing so that Americans can get a good and proper wage, Americans will get out there and work. And I would rather see Americans working than Americans sitting around and getting more food stamps and being more dependent upon poverty. But, once upon a time, my wife's Jamaican, we sat down and had this discussion. The United States of America used to offer these temporary visas where you could come and be a seasonal worker up here in the United States of America. You would work in a seasonal period, and then at the end of that seasonal period, you would go back. We can have that type of program. We need to improve our visa programs in some of these other countries. But what I tell you is that we cannot do is continue down a path where we ignore illegal immigration, and we cannot continue down a path where we try to protect everybody's little single rice bowl. Because people are finding the gaps, and the next thing you know, the millions upon millions of dollars that the American taxpayers are losing because of illegal immigration, it's going to affect our economy. It's going to bring us down sooner or later. But we have to be pragmatic about how we do this. We have to be smart about how we do this. Because the last thing we want to see is all of a sudden produce prices in the grocery store go sky high. And you're already seeing commodity prices increase. Why? Because of gas prices. Okay. Now let me tell you another little thing about gas prices. When you have monetary policy that is absolutely horrible, that's devaluing your dollar against the increase of the oil per barrel cost, that's how you end up with these high prices as well. You cannot continue to print more money. You cannot continue to monetize your debt. You cannot continue to keep interest rates artificially low at 0%. Now that's what I look at. We're not out of the woods yet. If we were out of the woods, interest rates would not still be at 0%.
I'm going to make notes on this next question. Mr. Seaman, I believe, asks, is there a way to find out about all the new regulations that are being written by the federal government?
Yes, there is. You can go and Google search the Federal Registry, and you will find that in calendar year 2011, the federal government added over 71,000 new pages of regulations to the Federal Registry in 1 year. Okay, and as I always tell people, the administrator of the EPA, Lisa Jackson, testified before the House Energy and Commerce Committee. She was asked one simple question: do you take into account the economic impact of the regulations that you're producing? She said no. Google up numeric nutrient criteria, and that will give you an understanding of how insidious some of these regulations are. Basically, they were telling some municipalities and they were telling farmers that if they could not produce runoff water that was parts per billion purer than rainwater, they would be fined. Now, when they asked the EPA regulators, what's the formula to come up with water that is parts per billion purer than rainwater, they didn't have a formula. They just said, if you don't have it below this level, you're going to get fined. That's how we're killing businesses and even local municipalities with the regulation. Now, I know the Sun Sentinel just put out a little piece about this pool lift thing. Okay? Federal government, see? The federal government just came out with a new regulation saying that all pools have to have a permanent handicap pool lift.